The special meeting, August 5th, 2016, 6:30. Mrs. Arcisi, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Bilkey.
Here.
Mr. Engel.
Here.
Ms. Hannigan.
Here.
Mr. Mueller.
Here.
Ms. Tully.
Here.
All right, first one up is Resolution 57. Mrs. Tully.
I'd like to offer resolution number 57 for second and third reading by title only.
Second.
Do we have a roll call?
Roll call.
Mr. Bilkey.
Yes. This is to suspend the rules.
Oh, wait, we haven't even,
Why would you
you're
s-
offering it for second reading, so she's not.
No, I was going to do
She
second
offered
and
second
third.
and third.
This is the grant.
All right.
This is the grant.
It's a grant
Only
or
the
loan.
grant.
May I, well, I would ask that we hold it at first reading, and quite frankly, this is the reason why. At the last meeting, if I may, at the last meeting, we remember we didn't have any time to discuss this. And the comment was, we'll discuss it on the floor. Then when we went out on the floor, we called it for a first reading, then the mayor went on, we had no discussion. Then, of course, later the mayor was upset that we weren't passing it, but we had no discussion. And quite frankly, we're going to have no discussion now. There are things in here that I think we need to discuss. I don't usually raise issues, but I think in this one, we do need to discuss this. And I think this segues into what I've said before. I think we really need to start having some longer work sessions. I think I'd like to hold this at second reading, and I'd like to have a little opportunity to discuss it before we move on to third reading. I'd like to discuss it tonight.
Right now, there is a motion to suspend on the floor in a second.
Well, she could withdraw the motion.
She can. Or can move forward with the vote.
So I'm asking Jan to withdraw the motion.
All right, I'll withdraw an offer for second, recognizing that we will be going for third shortly.
May I ask in between anyone on council that has any questions about this that we can put forward those questions, we can get answers prior to our meeting, and then we can discuss them further in
Well,
our
our next
work
meeting,
session?
no, I wanted to, well, I'm sorry, I didn't understand what you said.
All I'm asking for is, if there's any questions that we can email each other and get answers now and just,
I don't think we can email under the
No.
latest rules of open meeting,
can't.
as
You
Mr.
cannot.
Cadetti pointed out to us. I think where we're at, we need to have a second reading, so why don't you do the second
we
reading?
can't
just-
ask questions through email?
That's what I've
Of course
offered.
not.
You can't have a
I've
discussion
rescinded
between
it.
a quorum of council over email.
But Mr. Guidetti is,
He sent us an email
It's here to
explaining the
answer.
latest, is it a
Right, I
Supreme Court
understood that.
decision?
But if there was a question regarding legislation like this one here, and someone wanted to know, what does this grant provide for, or how much does this, go for, they can't ask that question
It
anymore?
cannot be a discussion between a quorum of council.
Right.
So if one or two council members have a discussion outside of a quorum, that's not a violation of the Open Meetings Act. There are procedural issues that can be discussed, but beyond that, no, all discussions have to take place at a meeting.
How about this? Any questions that would be pertinent to the person who would have the answer that we may not know, are we allowed to forward that question to them so that when we do have our work session?
As long as it's not between a quorum of the members. And it can't be a round robin situation either.
Which
That's
means
what-
we all can't join in.
Correct.
through-
That's what I understood you to
Correct.
warn us about. So that's why I
So I
stopped.
guess what I'm asking for is if there's a question that would go to the finance director, that we would forward our questions to her prior to the meeting so she'd be
I
prepared
don't
to
need to
answer.
forward them, I'll ask them tonight. while we
Perfect.
Discuss it.
If you so choose.
Thanks.
may I just read the title so whoever
I
is
think we need a second
watching
actually for the.
We need a second.
to the withdrawal? I'm sorry, I jumped the gun there. All in favor of the withdrawal?
The motion was.
All in favor of the withdrawal, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I make a motion to offer resolution 57, 2016 for second reading by title only, please.
An emergency resolution authorizing the mayor to apply to the Ohio Public Works Commission for a potential grant and/or loan for the funding of capital infrastructure improvement projects.
So, can we discuss? Yes. All right. Several things. I guess my question is, and engineering is here. So this is a proposed grant, and so the questions that I would have, and if you can't answer them now, you can get those to me. When is the grant due?
The grant was due at the end of July, so we have submitted the grant application without the resolution.
Oh,
Okay.
wow.
And we've informed OPWC that we've acknowledged we don't have the resolution yet, but that it is forthcoming.
Okay. And the grant is for how much?
Both projects were asking for 50% grant.
And the projects, you've done engineering work, and so you have some estimate of the value of the cost of the project?
Yeah, we have a construction estimate for each of these projects.
So
That's
what is
correct.
the construction estimate?
The Shepherd Road Sanitary Project, which we briefly discussed at the last meeting, the estimate is $782,000.
782, and the discussion was so brief, I don't even remember what it's about, so why don't you?
Sure.
Yeah,
There's a
right.
portion of Shepherd Road, I guess we'll call it the southern end of
South
Shepherd
Shepherd.
Road, South Shepherd, exactly, which does not have sanitary sewer service. Those residents are on septic. And it's my understanding that over the last couple of years at least, there's been a lot of discussion about installing a sanitary sewer. Nothing has actually taken place. There's also been a lot of discussion about assessing the residents, which is sometimes
Yes.
a tough thing to do. So at this point, the idea here is to try to secure some grant money to A, help make the project possible, and B, help to offset any possible assessment we may be considering against our residents. So
How many residents are affected?
that's a good question.
Thank you, that's why I asked it.
I'm going to say about 20 households.
Okay. No, I understand household.
Mhm.
And the other part of the grant is for a roundabout?
Yes, the second grant application is for the roundabout at Highland and Valley View intersection.
And what is the construction estimate for Highland?
Estimate is
Round-
746,000. And again, we are asking for 50% of that cost in the form of a grant.
So the grant would be for approximately 750,000, and since we're asking for half of these two projects.
Yes, yeah, all total, we're asking for about 750,000, correct. Yeah, it's actually each project has its own application.
I understand.
So they're separate.
They're separate
We can get one and not
applications.
get the other.
Yes, very possible.
We do have documentation that was presented. I don't have it with me because I didn't bring the folder that talked all about the roundabouts. And it also compared the prices of the roundabout versus widening the road. If you
Left-hand
don't
turn.
have that, well, Josephine can make us another copy, but
Yeah, I don't remember
everyone
getting
has
that.
that. It came to us a month and a half or more ago.
Yeah, quite some time ago, sure.
May I continue? Can I ask questions? Can I ask you more questions?
Yeah, I was just telling you, if you
All
have
right.
questions about the roundabout, you have a very
All right.
detailed document.
So my question then is,
I thought that's why we were doing the work session.
what, Jan?
I thought this is why we were doing the work session on Monday, was to talk about all of these.
Well, I thought we
I'm
wanted,
kinda
We want to talk
confused.
about it on the floor.
No, I'm just
You can't
confused.
have
I
it both
thought that's
ways.
why we agreed to an hour work session.
well, right, and Mr. Bilkey's right, we can't have it both either ways. Either we're gonna have work sessions, or we're gonna talk about it on the floor, and, if we're gonna vote on it, we need to start talking
It's
about
a
it.
second reading.
Right, and we haven't talked about it yet, so why can't we talk about it now? That's all I
We
want to do.
did talk about it in the work session, which we did have the other night. The mayor.
Would anybody like to summarize what we talked about at the work session? It was, we'll talk about it on the floor.
I'm just saying, we talked about the other night too. Perhaps you weren't.
Can we just
The
move
mayor
on
did
with the
speak
questions?
about it in the work session.
Seriously,
If I may.
thank you.
I'm not in charge.
Hey, go ahead, please.
I guess,
It's all right, let him ask his questions.
that's fine.
We're going, if we apply for the grant, then when would the projects begin? And so when would we be obligated to have the money in our budget?
Sure. As per OPWC rules, we cannot start construction or spend any of the money until July 1st of 2017. So there
are-
certainly would be no expenditures in 2016. That's just not possible. 2017 at the earliest.
But it would be in 2017?
It could be as early as 2017, possibly later.
So what's the latest it could take place? I mean, do the grants have a cutoff? that they have to
Yeah, you know, you can't just hold on to the money forever.
do? Sure.
Well-
So, you know, I suppose past history would say you get, you know, a couple of years and then either
So
you
18.
have to do the work or you have to give the grants back.
So 17, 18, 19, if we
I think
stretch.
that's about it, yeah.
Okay. All right. So here are my substantive questions. Thank you. Those were my questions. Here's my problem that I have with the legislation as it's written. I understand that the title of an ordinance is not part of the ordinance, but it says grant or loan. I think we need to take out the word loan. Later on in the whereas clause, and I understand whereas is also the same applies, it talks about financial assistance. And when it talks about in section 2, it talks about financial assistance, and then it further authorizes the mayor to enter into all agreements appropriate for obtaining financial assistance without defining financial assistance. Now, I am not being critical of the mayor in any way, but those of you who were on council several years ago will remember that there was a rather large dispute that arose out of similar legislation where the legislation said authorize the mayor to enter into any and all agreements. Council thought, at least a majority of council thought, that we were authorizing the mayor to go out and get bids. And it ended up $130,000 worth of engineering fees. And the majority of council was under the impression that before the contract for those fees were going to be entered into, there would come back to council. So I would make a motion that in the title we remove and/or loan, and in the fourth whereas clause we remove we remove financial assistance and say loan, and that in the second section we remove,
Did you mean grants? You should say grant.
grant, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And in section 2, we remove that the mayor is further authorized to enter into any and all agreements necessary and appropriate to obtain financial assistance, and that we say he's authorized to enter into applications for grants. So that would be my motion, if I would have a second.
Second.
And if I may, before,
Oh,
there's
sure,
further
I'm sorry.
discussion. No, I mean, you're correct in your assessment of the title and the whereas clauses, and that only these sections are the actual items being passed by council. Section 2 does say this financial assistance, referencing section 1, which specifically states that the mayor is authorized to make the application of the District 8 Public Works and the Ohio Public Works Commission for financial assistance for the following projects. So, I mean, it's pretty specific there.
I understand, but to your point, I would then also move that we change section 1, remove the word financial assistance and substitute the word grant.
Before we vote on that, I need to ask the engineering department, will that have any effect on us getting the grant? Because if we change that verbiage in there, will that have them look at this in a different way?
Probably not, but perhaps what's best for us to do, OPWC provides you with some sample language that you're supposed to have in your resolution. Of course, I don't have it with me right now, but maybe I'll provide it to the law director just to make sure we're not getting too far away from the language that OPWC would like us to use. So, but I don't think that I don't think it's really going to have any detrimental effect to our
We could take a look
application.
at that then on Monday.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's
And
fine.
see.
Yeah.
So I withdraw my motion at this point, if that's okay, and with the understanding that you can do this over the weekend? Not that I want you to work your weekend away.
Yeah, no, that's no problem. I
But
can
better
get it
you
to the
than
law
me, right?
director.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, well.
Somebody's
we'll
got to
look
work
at
on the
it before
weekend.
Monday's meeting.
No, I'll get it to the law director. It just takes a minute.
All right. You know, those are my procedural issues with this resolution. You know, I still think there's some substantive issues that we need to discuss regarding whether or not we want to go through with these projects. And certainly we can discuss at this time in light of the situation with taxes and things like that. But I don't have any problem waiting to discuss those.
I'm gonna ask Joe a question too. Is there any benefit to applying, and what are the chances of us getting the 50% grant for either of these projects? And is there any benefits of applying and not getting it? Does it get us on any sort of a list? So if we reapply in the future, we have a better chance of receiving the grant?
Yeah, there is one good benefit. Obviously, the first scenario is we get funded. Great. If we don't get funded, at least OPWC, we're on the radar. They know about the projects and they've scored the application, so we can see that scoring compared to the scoring of all the other applications from this year. We know where we stand, where we rank, and we can change our strategy if needed to move up the rankings to get funded.
What is the cost for the application? Is it nominal at this point?
It's nominal, yeah.
What's nominal?
I mean, just our time to prepare the application and create a construction
But you've
cost
already said
estimate.
you've done that.
Yes, yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah,
so
so
the
there-
cost of the application at this point is the postage to mail it? Is that what you're telling me?
Postage to mail it, a little bit of, time under our contract to do it, and that's it. So it's a very nominal cost. I'm not even
To
sure
do
how
what?
much it would be.
I thought you'd already done it.
Yeah, I call that sunk cost, wouldn't you?
All right, thank you.
So what are the chances of us getting ranked, and what do they do the first 3 projects? Is that normally?
No, what they do is there is a set amount of money, and they hand out the money, they go down the
Gotcha.
list, hand out the money until it's all gone. So some years it could be 3, other years it could be 5, 6, or 7 projects.
And again, do we have a chance of receiving this grant?
Oh, yeah, we certainly have a
Okay.
chance, yeah.
Thanks.
So Mr. Engel made a motion, withdraws, motion to withdraw.
Okay, second.
All in favor?
All right, moving on to ordinance
All
58.
in
gotta vote
favor
on
of
it.
withdrawing the motion?
Oh, sorry.
Yes.
All in favor of withdrawing the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Moving on to 58, I'd like to say this before we move into the next several here, that Monday was the intent of having a work session so that we could have some more of these discussions. If you guys choose to do that now, you're more than welcome to, but that was the intent for Monday's discussion. So if you choose to, we can do that now, or we can do it on Monday.
I think
Do it both.
Yeah, I think
Till
it's
we get
both.
something that works.
Whatever works for you, I'm happy. I just wanted to let you know that's what the intent. Because it was asked
We
for.
can try to get something where we all agree on and take the weekend, come back and reconvene and really work it on a Monday.
And if I may, Josephine, I'm going to have to ask you for some help on figuring out which of these is which. They all start the same.
All right, so the law director's there, and I'll have him explain what the
No. I meant number-wise, just number. The ones I have are all numbered
The
blank.
road levy is ordinance 58.
No.
The
No,
recreation.
Listen to me. Mine are blank.
I understand.
I can't figure out which they are.
I'm gonna
Alright.
tell you right now.
Okay, all right.
The ordinance for the road levy that says is number 59 in bold and capital letters.
It says
would be number 58.
58.
All right, 58.
This will be 59.
And the one that says not in bold and capital letters is 60.
Yes. As I understood this, Josephine,
All right, thank you.
one is if the road levy fails, and the other is if.
Well, again, Mr.
So, yeah, that's correct. There's 2 issues being proposed, essentially, 3 ordinances to accomplish it. The ordinance 58 is the road levy. Ordinance 59 is drafted for the language to forward to the codifier if the road levy passes. 59 is obviously the rec renewal. 60 is also the rec renewal and contains the language forward to the codifiers if the road levy fails. So it's a difference between code language if the road levy passes or fails. Is the reason for
Yeah,
that.
that's what I gathered from searching through this in detail.
One quick question, you only put one on the ballot.
Yeah, and if you look at 59 and 60, the ballot issue language is identical. So I believe the Board of Elections wouldn't duplicate it, they just put one on.
It's just covering.
It's just
the
two
what
issues
ifs.
for consideration,
Okay.
correct?
What?
Yeah,
All right,
we're
never
covering what ifs.
Okay.
More come later.
All right, why don't you give us a synopsis of 58, so we know exactly?
So 58 is a 0.25% continuous beginning January 1st, 2017 for road and stormwater projects, road improvements and stormwater projects.
And that's forever?
It's continuous until it's changed.
So it's forever until it's
Well,
changed?
Nothing's forever, but
No, it
yeah.
is if we don't have a
It's
date. It doesn't have an
continuous.
end date?
I don't know how else to say it, yeah.
It has no end date?
Correct.
It does not have an end date on it, as
It
the
does not.
Parks has 20 years
Correct.
stated
All right.
on it.
Yeah, so 59 and 60 then are a 0.25% rec levy renewal, and that takes effect July 1st, 2017, and continues to June 30th, 2037, if passed by the voters.
And that's also a 0.25%.
It is.
That is a renewal of the
Yes.
current
Yeah, we
tax
know.
code right now, Dave.
Yes.
I understand that, Okay, all right.
All right, so moving on to ordinance 58, 2016. I offer ordinance 58, 2016 for its first reading by title only.
An emergency ordinance amending sections 18201B, 18203, and 18204A of the codified ordinances of the City of Macedonia, Ohio, in order to increase the city's income tax rate by 1/4%, starting on January 1, 2017, and continuing thereafter for road improvements and stormwater projects, and submitting the same to the electors on November 8, 2016.
May I ask a question?
Any discussion on 58?
Yeah. What is the difference between 58 as presented to us and for the first reading tonight and the tax levy which just failed?
The levy that was up for consideration on August 2nd was a increase of 0.5% for a 5-year period with a 0.25% drop off after that 5-year period continuous. So this doesn't include that additional increase.
Okay, so it's the same as the last levy, except it's not 0.5%, it's a 1/4%.
So this is
All right.
narrowly drafted, it's only a 0.25%.
But it
going
has
on.
it has no
It has no
drop
end date.
off.
Right.
0.25%
That's my
continuous.
understanding too.
No end date.
Correct.
Wasn't the effective date different also?
January 1st, 2017 for this, I can't
Yes.
recall what.
Yes, it was October 1st.
We had
of the
October
last one.
1st for the August 2nd issue.
Why did we change it?
Well, this won't go on the
Because
ballot until
the-
November. So
I see. All right, I'm fine.
We can-
So I'm never sure what I'm supposed to talk at these things, so I'm gonna just jump in
He's the
and discuss.
presiding officer, so he'll
We're open for discussion.
Okay. So I spoke with Rhonda the other day, and she said that over a 5-year period, this would raise about $7.5 million.
Right.
And that $7.5 million would not have a solution for our roads problem maintenance going forward, but what it would do is potentially fix all the roads that we have that are in poor condition and fair to poor condition. And I think it was, I can't remember offhand how many roads there were.
It's poor condition and very poor condition.
Very poor, okay.
Right.
So it would be it would be something in place to fix those if we wanted to make it 5 years and have it drop off and have it reviewed in 5 years or 4.5, when we want
Well,
to put
it's
it back on.
continuous right now.
Well, I would like to make a motion to make it for a 5-year period from, January 1st, 2017 to, 5 years from that, December 31st, 2022, if that, is that those right dates?
Why don't we,
I think it'd be more appropriate for us to maybe discuss that further on Monday before we jump into
That's
this.
fine.
I think the intent here is, we all are aware that we need to fund this somehow. I don't think there's anyone that disputes that fact right now. But how we go about that is
Yeah,
where I think the five of us can work together, not just throw out something right now and do it. I think we should all collaborate on Monday to make that happen.
If I may, finances is always an issue for council, and I agree that we do have to find finances for the city, but I also think that we have to be cognizant of the fact that a levy, not too different from this, was just resoundingly rejected. I'm not here at this point to argue either way. I'm only here to submit that from a political stand, this may not be the smartest thing to do. The city is beholden to its residents and its voters because they pay the taxes. It's their city, it's not ours, and they've clearly indicated that they are not in the mood to raise taxes. And you know, I think the fact that the first time around, things got, from my standpoint, kind of jammed through real quick. And this time, it's going to be even quicker. I think it would be offensive to the citizens. And, you know, it reminds me of one of my favorite Bible stories, and I'm not here to preach, but it's a great story. It's the Exodus story. And if you remember, every time Moses went to Pharaoh and said, "Let my people go," I love that from the movie, Pharaoh said no. And so the frogs came. "Let my people go." No. So the flies came. The river turned red. And the great part in the Bible is, and Pharaoh's heart hardened. I'm telling you, we're going to harden the hearts of the people who are the life of this city against anything in the future. And I think we should respect that maybe this is not the time to do this. And so it's my cautionary tale. I really think this is not the time to do this.
I understand where you're coming from, but let me remind you of how that story ended, in that he destroyed everything. And I think the point here that needs to be drawn home is that we have a problem that we need to address. And by not addressing it and not bringing it back and not trying to find solutions to it, we're acting like it doesn't exist. This problem is snowballed. I mean, this is not something that is going away. We drive down these roads every day. They're deteriorating quickly. We have professionals in the field telling us that these roads are in desperate need of repair. And to not acknowledge that, I understand and I agree with you. The voters gave a resounding no. So maybe it was the 0.5%. I don't know. A lot of things I heard was the 0.5% was appalling to people. That may be it. I really don't have the answer to that. What I do have the answer to is our infrastructure is crumbling, and it is our responsibility to take care of that. And if we just don't acknowledge that and we just throw our hands in the air and say, well, we'll wing it, we'll get a couple roads a year, this is only going to get worse.
I understand what you're saying, but I also understand or at least I think I understand that maybe the voters are saying, come back with a better solution or a different solution. And I'm looking at I'm trying to think of solutions, and I know that, and I can never remember the initials, but the Northeast Ohio Stormwater, whatever they're called.
NERC.
Thank you.
You know,
I can never remember, but anyways, the stormwater people are now, I think the city's share is about $250,000. $225. And I understand that is for stormwater, but if we're not going to stop using water to run this city. And so it would seem to me that is a very stable income that's coming in. And if we bond for 20 years, understanding that we're going to pay that back, we're probably going to be able to bond for maybe $4 million, which I understand is not the total solution, but it is a partial solution that we would then be able to deal significantly with our stormwater. It seems to me that we have 3 major stormwater issues on our radar right now. Lady of Guadalupe Retention Basin, the culvert over Sioux, and the Ledge Road. We don't even know what Ledge Road is going to cost because we don't have a solution yet, and I know that our engineers are working on it. So, I'm just suggesting that maybe there are other alternatives, and maybe if we can sit down and talk, and I appreciate the fact that we're having more discussion in this meeting than we have had all year, and I do appreciate that maybe there is a better solution, and one that our voters would, after they had an opportunity to understand that we're working to try to find a better solution, may then support.
I have looked at what are the other solutions, and I've talked to a couple residents about what are the other solutions. One is do nothing. Hope that the economy turns, that our income goes up. We're going to get money from when this building's paid off. We get no extra money from when the rec center's paid off, because anything that's in that 0.25% can only go to the rec center. So we do nothing. We go to a 0.25% income tax. We take away the tax credit. We go to property increase because we haven't increased the property tax. We cut services. And, I don't think we have a lot of fat in our budget when we looked at our budget this year, but maybe we cut services. Maybe there are things that we just don't do anymore. Maybe we assess people. Do you want your road done? It's assessed. Those are the kinds of thoughts that, where do you go? You have roads that are deteriorating. There are roads that are in horrible, horrible shape. How do you fix them? Now, there was a conscious effort before on council to stop borrowing money. So taking out bonds and notes stopped. That's one of the reasons why there isn't a bond or a note out there for roads. It was stopped. There was an increase put on for so many years to get us out. People keep forgetting we're in a recession. We had no money coming in. So we put an income tax. It was your idea. I agreed with it. We had a temporary tax. That was just to get us through the day-to-day business. So what you have is two things that this city has major issues with: roads and stormwater. And stormwater is never going to go away until we really put the penny out there to do it. If we're thinking the $250,000 from the stormwater district, who they have to bless what project we do, and oh, by the way, they now want to do another study on Bedford Road. So we're going to study the study to study that study again.
Who's studying the study?
NUSRD wants to study.
Oh.
We've already done how many?
If I may add,
that's where I think it's time. This is why why is the dialogue starting now? If we're going to do anything in November, it has to be to the county on Wednesday. That's why. So if we don't do anything on the December ballot or the November ballot, we face it again, and we keep having these conversations. We're going to have a capital improvement meeting. We're going to have a state of the business of our financials in September. If we want to wait, that's fine, but then we pay the repercussions of no roads being done for the rest of this year and into next year.
well, no roads are going to be done this year. I'd just like to make one comment, Jan, and you're right. We did purposely decide that we would not loan money to pave roads. And before I became on council, that had been done, and we had a $2 billion note. And the first year I came on council, I was shocked to find out that we weren't paying on that note. We were just, let's be honest, damn lucky to pay the interest. And so that's when we finally said we can't do that. But I think we've also always said that borrowing is okay if we have a dedicated source of income. And in fact, the plan that the mayor had this tax passed would have been to bond. And so I'm just saying we should bond where there is a firm, solid source of income that we know is going to be coming in over the next 15, 20 years, whatever it is. And I'm suggesting that funds from the stormwater people is that, because we're all going to keep drinking water here as long as there's a city.
Right.
Well, I think those go hand in hand, Dave, but I gotta remind you, and I'm sure you're very well aware that when we first worked together, we walked into one of the worst situations I think the city has ever seen, and Jan, you were there as well, where we rely on income tax, so we're peak and valley. To say that's the answer almost puts us in a position where we're held and we could have a disaster any day of the week. I mean, I think we're not far off from having another financial problem in our country where we can fall back into that trap and we're gonna all throw our hands in the air and go, uh-oh, now what do we do? I think, in the
Through an
point
income tax.
excuse me, a point I made in the last meeting that we had was simply this. We've lived within our means, but now we're at a point where we need help. And I think that the costs that are out there, and I know the number has been kicked around and said 1,000 times, but when there's $20 million in roads that are needed right now, you've got to do something. We can't keep allowing these roads to deteriorate, and I don't believe that going into debt is the answer to that. I don't think digging a hole of debt and kicking the can down the road and hoping for the best is what's best for us now. Nobody ever wants to pay more tax, neither do I. But nothing has been presented to show us something that can work and where this money tree is. We don't have a source of income that's going to cover the $20 million. The idea of the 60-year loan that was thrown out last time was just ridiculous. There's no way that we could ever do that.
May I say something here? Since we're talking about something that was never proposed. I just want to say some things and provide some different perspective here. The voters told us no in a pretty crushing manner on August 2nd. They were rejecting the tax increase that was proposed by the mayor and the majority of council. And it seems like instead of listening to the voters and their concerns, we are rushing to present tax levies without working out how we address the voters' concerns. May I please finish and then you say whatever you wish. Every resident I've talked to wants to see roads fixed. Every member of council wants to direct resources and address our roads. The question is not whether the roads needs fixing, but our long-term plan to do so. Because we haven't had one for the last 4 decades apparently and haven't done anything to these roads. What we need to do is look at our existing expenditures and focus on how to winnow those expenses and focus on financing a road plan. Just to give one example, we've spent $1 million annually for almost 2 decades financing the construction of the recreation center and its accoutrements. We need to examine priorities when we plan to continue to expend 12.5% of our income tax on parks and recreation when our roads are not being properly maintained. I believe the most critical priority is the roads, and that's where we should focus potential resources, including that 0.25% that's sitting out there right now that's going to be expiring next summer. I believe the most critical priority is the road, and we need to focus the resources on that, and we should be paying for them as a priority above other optional capital expenditures. Our draft capital plan, which has that $37 million X dollars, it's a testament to expenditure bloat without proper priorities. We can sharpen and focus on the real issues, but not in a 3-day crisis mode. Council can take the lead on if we're willing to work on this whole process by having real work sessions and examining real alternatives. So far that has not happened, and that is why our residents are not prepared to support our rush to judgment on taxes. We need to understand that they all want the roads fixed. They want to see us spend money where the roads are the problem. I understand some people want the recreation center to receive 12.5% of our income. I don't think that's a good option right now when we have this kind of road issue in front of us. Should it be a subset of that? Maybe. Certainly possible. But we do not seem to be willing to acknowledge that period of time in which we paid for the recreation center construction is now over, and we need to look at where we should be applying $1 million annually. And I think it's on the roads, and we're some subset on recreation too, but we need to focus on how to finance things, not to raise taxes, at least to have a discussion about it. That's-
Are you stating that we don't fund the rec center? I just want to make sure I clarify
No,
that.
I'm not saying we don't fund the rec center. What I'm saying is we do not dedicate 12.5% of our income tax to the recreation center or the parks because we need to focus on what are the priorities for the residents.
But then how would you fund the rec center if they have no revenue? Because that is paying off the bills, but also is utilized. Anything that's left goes to them for funding. When this was first analyzed and brought forth before you were here, this is eons ago when they first talked about it, dating myself, there was discussion that a rec center is never self-supportive, ever. There is not one in any community, so you're always looking that you will have to fund it. For a minimum, at that time, it was $200,000. By now, that's probably almost doubled. And at the same time, if you want to do any capital improvements, how do you then perform capital improvements? The one complaint I receive from residents is, where's my outdoor pool? Well, the outdoor pool was never part of phase 1. It was always phase 2 and 3. So I just want to clarify, you're saying don't renew or put on to renew for the parks, for the rec center, find a way to fund the rec center, and I'm all for how do we find a way to do these roads and stormwater. Let's not forget stormwater. I'm blessed that I don't have the water in my basement, but I watch it rushing out of the pipe out of Guadalupe down the street.
Let me just say this. Number one, I haven't said we should not dedicate some funds to the recreation center. What I'm saying is 12.5% of our income tax is not justified. That's one. Number two, NERSD is going to charge every business in this town and every resident a considerable amount of money. And so that money is going to get dedicated, whether we like it or not, to stormwater. And we can bond that out, as Mr. Engel said, and should, because we've got a long-term issue with that, and we need to get projects in place that will do the job. But $225,000 a year means that in a decade, you're talking plenty of money to really address the big ticket issues and then start to look on the long-term issues. So it's not, we shouldn't be thinking that we don't have money. Our residents are going to pay this, our businesses are going to pay it. We have no choice. It's like an additional property tax. It is there. And for many residents, it's going to be $111 a year. For some residents, it's going to be $61 a year. And for all the businesses, it's running between $3,000, $6,000, $8,000 a year.
Actually, that's not new. NEOSRD applied that when we were back talking stormwater eons ago. They sat in this room, and it's the first time they ever mentioned to us, we're going to create a fee.
I know it's not
They
new.
wound up in court, so we paid it before. It's coming back. We've just never gotten our share. And oh, by the way, NEOSRD reviews what you want to do because you don't get 100% back.
You get 25%
You fund other projects
community
that
share.
are
That's
impacting
$225,000.
the watershed within the district.
And
Well-
there's opportunities for credits, actually pretty significant credits too, that really
Yes.
residents should go on the NURSD's website and take a look at doing like rain barrels and things of that nature.
Absolutely.
So hopefully, there will be a lot of discounts.
Well, and I had asked the mayor, you bring up a good point, I had asked the mayor to have a presentation done, and they're willing to come in and talk specifically to that point about the various discounts that are available for residents.
I've looked at that too, and and I asked them to look at it when I asked NERSD about an estimate. Where we're at is that this is a relatively conservative estimate. They're anticipating that we're not only going to get our community share, we're going to get additional funding from larger scale projects if we apply for them, which is what we have to do. As far as they have to approve, Yes, they do, but as long as, the big issue is for our community share, we're spending it on stormwater, not on the recreation center or basketball courts. That's what the issue is. So I'm saying we shouldn't discount the fact that we're going to have a steady source of income, which should solve some of the problems with stormwater. It doesn't solve our road problems because we can't spend it on roads. But we can, in terms of this, this particular resolution, it's talking about stormwater. I don't think it should even be in there. I think we should rely on the money, the community share we're going to get, and potentially then additional projects, because frankly, Macedonia is going to spend about, businesses and residents, they're going to collect about $906,000 from us annually. There's many reasons why they're doing that, many of them having to do with Cuyahoga County, but nonetheless, we do have some projects here that are justified, and we should be able to get them to finance in addition to our community share. So I really think that we need to think about how to work out this plan in more detail, look at the financing options, and look at how to dedicate, let's say 3/4 of that 1/4% income tax, $750,000 to roads annually, and look at some potential use for parks and rec of the rest of it. But that's, I think we need to have real discussion about it rather than simply move ahead with a rush on this. We don't have to rush. We do have to get this thing discussed, and we have to figure out how we need to get moving on it. And as far as the 1/4%, as you know, it's going to expire next summer, at the end of June, and we do have other opportunities to put things on the ballot. So I think we need to just work it out from the council level where we want to spend money and what has to be put aside as not a high priority. And not as high as getting our roads fixed.
I think it's important, and perhaps there's a lack of understanding here, but stormwater and roadways are hand in hand. And I'm sure engineering will echo that sentiment, because I know right now, and I had a conversation this week, I think we have 39 catch basins that are in need of repair right now at an average cost of $3,000 to $6,000. We have 16 crossovers that need repaired that average a cost anywhere between $10,000 and $30,000. So to say that stormwater doesn't have an effect with roads is ludicrous, because those are hand in hand. You just did.
No, dear.
And let me remind you of one other thing, Sylvia.
All I said was,
excuse
we
me,
don't
ma'am.
need to
Ma'am,
include it in the
please.
tax levy. That's all I
Sylvia,
said.
Please. And I want to remind you of something else. You've said the same thing here ad nauseum. And I'm not being rude when I say this, but let me say this. We have told you, the majority of this council has told you, we do not agree with your idea of how to do it. And you keep kicking us with it, and we're telling you we don't agree with that thought.
And the
So
residents told you they don't agree with your proposal.
the one you campaigned against, but campaigned for one in Northfield Center.
All right, just move on. Let's not, doesn't matter. But,
Let me finish though, I'm not done.
okay, I mean, there's no use of harping on
I'm
what's
not
been
done
done
yet.
and who's
Please.
been against it. And
The point I'm trying to make is, we all know that we need to do something. Your idea, you don't like. You don't like our idea. So on Monday, when we sit in that room and you get your, excuse me, ma'am, this is,
Well, that's
this is
what we're
not your
trying to
time to
get
speak, please. Please.
I'm sorry, accept my apologies.
So on Monday, the intent was, and Kevin actually put it best, that we can all sit in that room and talk. We don't have to sit there and argue with each other and fight and get angry. If your idea is one that's not accepted by the majority, we move on to the next one. And I want to be that council where we can have these differences and not get angry and mad and keep going back to the same thing and spinning our wheels in mud. That's why we're having a work session on Monday. You know my feelings about it, and that's why we're going to do that.
you have to be willing to be flexible. But I also remind, I think everyone up here other than me are lifetime people lived in Macedonia. And I moved in here in 2009. And the one thing that drew me to the area was the rec center. I was going to start a family, and I wanted to have some place to go to swim, and I was hoping that it would keep expanding, and it's one of the reasons why I ran for council. I didn't hide it from anybody when I ran. I said, these are the reasons why I'm running, because I wanted better roads and I wanted a better park system. So I'm going to fight for it. And so I think it's a great idea to dedicate money to it, because if you don't, it gets put on the back burner. When's the last time we had a talk about doing anything at the rec center? Does anyone remember? But the building needs work. It probably needs a new layout. This building needs work. There's thousands of things we can do, but if you don't dedicate money to something, it goes elsewhere, and then you forget about it. And next thing you know, no one's going to go to the rec center, because why would you? And that's just my philosophy is you got to provide for the people and not divide them. And that's something that the city provides for its residents, is a rec center. So why not make it the best rec center that we can? You know, I understand about the roads, and I agree with you, Sylvia, that something needs to be done. But we can come together to present a plan. But it can't just be stuck in the mud, I'm not budging on what I think, because we all have different thoughts.
I'm not saying that
okay.
at all, Kevin. What
And-
I'm
and-
saying is you guys you did your first thing, had to have it on August 2nd, you got crushed.
We did get crushed, no doubt about it.
And-
But, you know,
and
there's
you
reasons,
won't-
there's reasons that it got crushed. And now, I'm not gonna harp on it, but when you see something that says, vote no because it's a 25% tax hike, people get scared. But it wasn't a 25%. You know, I can't tell you how many times people said, you're going to increase my overall tax burden 25%. Well, that is a crushing blow. And that's not, it was a 25% on income tax. And it
Correct.
wasn't
That's what it
educated,
said.
but people didn't understand that. People said taxes. When you said
What?
it's a 25 increase on my taxes, they
Right.
included their income tax, they included their property tax, they included their federal government tax.
Yeah, well, that's
and
not
then-
what it said, dear. So-
Well, but it,
Okay,
okay,
so let's
it
go
didn't
on.
say it, but Sylvia, it implied it.
No, it didn't.
Yes, it did.
It did not.
It implied
It
it.
said 25%
We were going to raise it
increase,
your income tax a 0.5%.
Right.
Believe me,
25%.
believe me. What I pay in property taxes, 1/4%
You're-
of that into a 1/4%. Well, what the
Okay,
income
whatever.
is
Let's
a bit
move
different.
on.
But your
So
plan-
you misled it, and I'm
It is not misleading.
But
it's
you
a
could
fact.
have educated people saying it was a
Hey.
0.5% on income. So I said I wasn't going to harp on it, but you know what? It was misleading.
Yes, you are.
I know. I'm sorry. I want to move forward. I do.
Okay.
You know, the opposition. I'll say the opposition did a good job opposing it, better than the people who supported it. It was a solution, and it's a sad state that it did not solve our problems. You would like to speak?
No.
No.
Sorry, we can't.
Most people didn't even
Ma'am.
know.
It's
there
a special
No,
meeting.
ma'am, please.
Enough
No,
people
next
did
council
to
meeting,
vote it down,
please.
so. But I'm just saying that if we can work together, we could come up with something and all 5 of us stand behind. And I'm not saying we should walk out of there Monday all upset, because that means it's a good negotiation, that no one got exactly what they want, but we all got something, that it presented a plan to the city. You know, any good negotiation ends up bettering everybody, and that's what we need to do. You know, and you guys are right. You know, all 5 of us have been stubborn in some way or another, and if we want to do something to fix, then we have to let go and just say, what could we do that betters our city? And that's what I plan on asking on Monday, and that's my spiel. And I've sat up here for 7 months, and I get emotional about this stuff because it's our city, and we can make it better if we don't seem so short-sighted. We have to think long-term. We have to think of the values of our houses. And if we take all that stuff away, who's going to want to live in Macedonia? Who's going to want to move their family in Macedonia if we don't have a nice rec center and we have bad roads? You know, the people that we'll be selling our house to, I don't want to be neighbors with, who don't value those things. And so that's what I think that we need to emphasize, that something needs to be done. This council needs to get it done. So let's move on to 59.
Moving on to 59, I'd like to offer ordinance 59, 2016 for its first reading by title only.
An emergency ordinance amending sections 18201B, 18203, and 18204A of the codified ordinances of the City of Macedonia, Ohio, renewing the current 1/4% income tax levy, which expires on June 30th, 2017, and which is designated exclusively for maintenance and operation of the City Recreation Center, including any new construction and other parks and recreation purposes. Said renewal to continue for a 20-year term expiring on June 30th, 2037, and submitting the same to the electors on November 8th, 2016.
Mr. Cadetti, I may have misunderstood you, but I'm going back to make sure I know what you said. I thought at the beginning, when I was trying to figure out which numbered was which, you had said that this was also for roads, so, but
No.
it's not. It's
There's-
only for
there's one
rec.
ordinance, ordinance 58 for roads.
All right.
Ordinance 59 and 60 are both for the
For rec
recreation.
center
land.
only, all right.
Now, both of those, the reason for two of them is because they're dependent on if the road passes or not. 59 is the language if road passes, 60 is the language for the rec if the road fails.
So it's more of a procedural.
Correct.
With the
Yeah,
way it's worded.
There's a difference in language because in what we're gonna send to the codifier.
I get it. Moving on, ordinance 60, 2016.
For ordinance number 60, 2016, for its first reading by title only, please.
An emergency ordinance amending sections 18201B, 18203, and 18204A of the codified ordinances of the City of Macedonia, Ohio, renewing the current 1/4% income tax levy, which expires on June 30th, 2017, and which is designated exclusively for maintenance and operation of the city recreation, including any new construction and other parks and recreation purposes. Said renewal to continue for a 20-year term expiring on June 30th, 2037, and submitting the same to electors on November 8th, 2016.
Can we discuss?
Go ahead.
So I am part of two committees. I am the chair of the Parks and Recs Committee that met on Wednesday, and I'm also a part of the Redevelopment and Growth Committee that has met once a month for the last year and a half. The number one issue besides road is growing our parks. So it's not just me. You know, it's a lot of people, and the people I talk to where I live would be devastated if this levy does not continue. And because not only does the building need maintenance, we need to grow. We need to continue to grow our parks. It's part, you know, you go your schools and your roads and your parks. It's the three things that attract people to your city. And if we take one away to do another, you know, we're selling ourselves short. So we have to find a way to be able to get behind and continue this and find a solution to fix our roads. So it really wasn't a really discussion, it was more of a statement.
And this is for 20 years, right?
1/4% for 20 years.
20,
correct.
okay.
July 1st, 2017.
Replacing one that was for 10 years, if I remember right.
Yeah, it was actually almost 20, I think I said.
And can I ask one question of Kevin? What did the committee say? Did they want to proceed with the phase 2 and 3? And I know that I think the survey had reflected that.
We met in May. We wanted to go on in November for renewal. We did not want it to interfere with people voting yes or no on the roads levy, so we held off to do it now. But as far as phase 2 and 3, no one on the committee really understands that. What we do understand is that we would like to get a plan together and present it that if the levy does pass, these are the things that the park can, talking amphitheater, outdoor splash park, walking path, you know, things that people in the city can enjoy, and that's the other reason why you live here.
But you're not proposing completing phase 2 and 3?
I'll be honest, I don't know what phase 2 and 3 are.
Well,
I think we need a new plan.
I actually agree with that.
Phase 2 and 3, because
Well,
it's part of phase 1. Yeah.
Phase 2 was the swimming
One
pool.
was an outdoor pool,
Yeah.
the other
It's-
was an expansion of
The-
actually it was adding on a basketball court,
Right.
The
exercise
gym
room,
has been discussed, obviously.
lockers.
The outdoor pool is something that you know, not everybody is behind because of
Right, it's true.
of the 3 months a year that you can use it. Sometimes it sounds like a great idea. You know, if we were cash happy, maybe it'd be a great idea, but we
You know,
understand that we're not, so we're going
when
to
we-
present
Is-
ideas
is-
that.
Someone who was
When it snows in
actively
May, it's a
involved in,
Right.
as someone who was actively involved in phase 1 and worked with Mr. Boros and others, you know, the plan was made to become fluid because we knew in 20 years who knew what the needs were or what the new thing would be.
Right.
You know, splash pads, the one that they put down in Public Square. That's the new thing for kids, instead of having a pool so that you can,
That's
you know,
true.
run
So-
through the fountain. So I think that I agree we need to do something, but I think you need to look at, I'm sure the old plans are still there. Angela should be able to get a hold of them.
We looked at them.
And then look at where do we want to go? And I think that's right. When I was on the Parks Board, we talked about what do people want now?
We looked at the plans just this past Wednesday of what the park was originally supposed to be. I think it was a 1997 map and had walking trails, garden, an amphitheater, and things like that, more baseball fields, soccer fields. And I don't think that is necessarily our focus, but I think it needs to be restudied. And the one thing that we'll probably be asking for council is money to do that study, and somebody other than me coming up with the ideas, someone who's a professional that can come up with some drawings. I know that when I talked to Chagrin Valley to see if they were able to do it, and quite frankly, you don't need to sell it, but you need to present it to people who will potentially be voting on it. Like, this is what you could have if you renew this levy. If this levy fails, you're not going to have it. You know, that's the bottom line. So it's a levy that is going to be providing a specific, you know, build. You know, it would be specific to what you're voting on.
Well, actually, it isn't, because we don't have any plan that's even adopted. But let me ask this question. We don't even know what these things cost, and yet we want to have a levy spending $1 million a year for 20 years. That's $20 million. Let me ask you this, Mr. Goodetti.
Yes.
Since you've been so lickety-split on the job getting these particular ordinances together, I'd like to have another ordinance that reflects spending, instead of the renewal to spend $1 million on Parks and Rec, to spend 75% of that 0.25% renewal on roads and 25% on Parks and Recreation.
If you send me a request, I'll
Yes, I can.
start on it.
And I'll try to get it to you tonight. Thank you.
That's a little progress, yes? Little progress.
Any other discussion?
May I make a suggestion? I know that this is a special meeting, but I also know that this is a issue on the fast track, so to speak, because of the time. I think we should allow comments from residents, if not tonight, certainly Monday night, Tuesday night. I think that's a courtesy that we should extend, and I'm asking that we do that. If people want to make comments.
Yeah, and that'll be a
Right,
decision
we should
for the
hear from-
presiding officer. Yeah.
What?
And that'll be a decision for the presiding officer.
Okay.
So I'm urging the presiding officer to make that decision.
Just from tonight's standpoint, I was just following
I-
Robert's Rules of Order. I wasn't trying to be rude. I don't want you to think that. It was just following what we had
We
today, so.
can, we can,
I don't have a problem. I would like to hear from the public, but then
it's fine.
we may need to, I can assure everyone that's planning on coming, we're probably gonna run late from our work session.
Yeah, and the reason for the quick and simple agenda is obviously because there's a August 10th, 4 p.m. deadline to get anything to the Board of Elections, to get on the ballot for the voters to consider in November.
So do we want to hear from the people tonight?
I don't think we've got enough people here. They don't have any.
Yeah, I think we let them on Monday, and we have a sign-in sheet. Do it just like we do every
Mhm.
month.
Yeah.
Well, it's
Right.
only,
Yeah, you have to sign in.
Well,
if we
we
hear
can
from
certainly-
everybody, it's 5.
Yeah, well, that's
Yes.
true, if we want to
But
do
there
that.
may
I
be more
agree. I
people
don't have a
coming.
problem.
Let them talk. What's it gonna hurt?
It's Zootopia. Which one go to the park?
What's it gonna
That's why
hurt?
we don't
Let-
have-
you-
All right,
does
anyone wants to
have a
speak, please
issue?
come to the microphone, state your name and address, please.
I mean, go ahead, if you guys wanna speak, go ahead, just.
Please limit yourself to 5 minutes or less.
If you want to speak on Monday night, come back.
I'll speak now.
You got it?
Tina Han on Sioux Lane. By the way, the neighbors on Sioux Lane, close our road and don't fix it. We'll be perfectly happy. So don't worry about our culvert. We like our road closed.
That's what they told me.
I think what I've talked to a lot of the neighbors on Sioux Lane. We like our road closed. I think a lot of people are sick of, well, I know I am, I won't speak for everybody, of the wasteful spending in the city. Wasteful. And now all you want us to do is give you more money. It's not going to happen. I'm not going to vote for it again. Until you people start being transparent and acting like adults, okay, for those of you that don't act like adults, I'm not giving any more money. I don't care. I can't afford to go to the rec center. What do I care if they get all this new crap? I don't care because I can't afford to go there. Why don't you get the garden club to plant flowers and buy some dirt and make some nice, pretty stuff? The roads are the important thing. Cookton decided he was going to pave side streets. Well, you could have used that money to do the big streets. Remember, these are side streets, and they may be horrible, but what are you doing? Driving 20 miles an hour to get to your house. Concentrate on the main roads, like, North Bedford, which is fine. I don't have a problem with North Bedford. Looks good to me. But don't do side streets as a priority unless they're in really low on, high on the priority list to be fixed. I heard that it cost $30,000 to do the mayor's office and conference room. Was it $15,000 for the special election that went south? We bought a scissor machine that goes up in the air so we can change light bulbs at the rec center. The city already owned one. We got another one. I could go on and on about wastefulness, where you're not thinking. You don't live within your means. You want to build an outside pool at the rec center? Where are you going to get the money? I don't want to pay for a pool at the rec center. I got to eat. I got to buy medicine. I got to pay my bills, my water bill. My electric bill is going to be a freaking fortune next month. You know what? I got to live poor. You guys should have two lists. Have to and want to. And the have to's got to be first. People don't think you're doing a good job. That's my opinion.
Anyone else?
Come on up.
It's going to take a little longer. She has a deal.
I'm going to get a ticket.
Almost here.
You're doing pretty good with that new name.
Yeah, yeah. Bobby Paul, Thistle Ridge Drive, no, off of Valley View. All I have to say is, I would wish and hope and pray that all of you can come together as a think tank instead of just hitting your heads against each other, resentment or whose idea it is, or put all of that aside and really just say, hey, we have a really crush as far as money is concerned. How are we going to solve it? Not he said, she said, this is what we did. What are you going to do now? And put everything else aside. We sit here and we watch you, we could see you bucking heads, and it doesn't accomplish anything. I think you'd all enjoy your jobs a lot better if you could just learn to get along better. So that's all I have to say. And as far as signing a sheet, Jan, to say something, if something is said here that's impromptu, we might want to make a statement at that time without being rude or vulgar or anything.
Well, I appreciate that, but in special meetings, we have never had public comments, ever.
Well,
So this is a first.
well, then we had a first tonight. Thank you.
Thanks.
I'll make a quick statement, because I know you guys have been working with the mayor for that wall. But, there's no chance of getting that wall if we can't fix the roads first. That's the reality of it. So, the wall that blocks the Thistle Ridge, Stone Ridge from Coca-Cola.
Well, whatever.
Hi, Cameron Lozzi, 13, Driftwood. I understand the money's in the tax and it went down. My question if that went down, you don't want to put the 1/4 for income tax fine. How do you guarantee the 1/4 that you want for roads when the one for the rec goes away will be passed to? I look at it saying, I'll go down to 1.75. It saves me money. So I'm not sure that even any 1/4 is going to pass the way people are talking here. So even if you want to put up just for roads, like 75 to 25 you're talking about, you can't even guarantee that's gonna pass. So where's the money for the roads then if that fails? That's all I'm saying. You won't have the money at all. And we'll go down to 1.75. You'll lose money, period.
Well, That's
That's
why
all.
we have to work it out here.
It's a good point.
All right.
That's why we vote, though.
Thank you.
Okay.
Anyone else? Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
You're not going to the park.
All right.